Hello, Gloria Dayers. So we just keep trekking through our readings through the New Testament, and this week we are on 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, Paul's letters to the church in Thessalonica. The fun part about these letters is that we have some background in it, or on this church in Thessalonica. We find it in Acts 17. So a recommendation would maybe be to glance back at Acts and read that, kind of review what is happening there. But here is the skinny on it. The Apostle Paul, as he does, is traveling around. He is a missionary, right? He's evangelizing, wanting to tell people about Jesus. And in chapter 16 of Acts, he has this vision that he should go to the region of Macedonia. And so he does. And Thessalonica is a leading city in the region of Macedonia, which is a Roman colony or outpost in the northern part of Greece. First, they go to Philippi, where a bunch of things happen. It's kind of fun to review that. And from there, they go to Thessalonica. And they, in this case, is Paul and Silas, who is one of Paul's fellow disciples and a faithful companion to him. So in Thessalonica, Paul does what he usually does. You'll find out in Acts, which he goes to the synagogue and he preaches and he tells people about Jesus, and some who hear, as is the word does, brings faith. They hear this word about Jesus and they come to believe in Jesus, and the church is formed. But this happening of people believing in Jesus also makes other people really nervous. And so a mob is formed, and life becomes a little dangerous for Paul and for the fellow believers. The mob goes looking for Paul and Silas. When they don't find them, they drag out some other believers, and then they are accused of turning the world upside down. In Acts 17, verse 7, it says this, they are turning the world upside down. These people who have been turning the world upside down have come here, and they're looking for them. And it makes them really nervous that they're calling Jesus king. This makes them nervous because they're under Roman rule. There's an emperor that they should have loyalty to. This loyalty probably keeps them safe. Gives them a good economical life, probably affects all aspects of their life. So when Paul comes in and encourages this loyalty to another King Jesus, this faith in Jesus, makes everybody a little nervous, and life becomes a little dangerous for them. So Paul and Silas have to leave that region, but still they have formed a church in their time there, and people believe and they continue to meet. And so Paul writes these letters to the people in Thessalonica, the congregation there, and that's where we end up with our writings. And so, not able to be physically present with them, that's what letters do for us. When we can't be physically present with someone, we write letters, right? So when you are reading 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, if you have a study Bible, it will probably tell you that 1st Thessalonians is Paul's earliest letter that we have to a congregation. And 2nd Thessalonians, they aren't sure if it was written by Paul or someone else in Paul's social circle. But nonetheless, they're just letters for us to read, and we'll let biblical scholars wonder about such things. For us, they are good and quick books to read, and yet still full of good things. So, given this context, and as you read the letters, I want to give you some things to listen for as you are reading. So here are those things. One, first, as you read, listen for a word of encouragement. These letters are really written to encourage the people of Thessalonica. As Paul and Silas had to leave because they were in danger, so too does Paul know that life continues to be hard for the congregation there. And so he writes to encourage. And encouragement is kind of one of those funny things where encouragement doesn't get you out of a situation. It doesn't, like if you are encouraged when you're hungry, you aren't necessarily given food. Like encouragement doesn't solve the thing or give you the thing that you need necessarily. Encouragement is simply like, stay strong. You're going to get through this. You'll be okay. And words are what make that often happen. And so Paul writes words, gives a letter to encourage the people in Thessalonica. And you'll notice how he does this. He points often to the words that he has already given them, and he points them often to what God has already done. God has already done this great thing in Jesus Christ for you. Therefore, be strong, stay in the faith, continue to believe. And you'll hear Paul doing this throughout both 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. He is encouraging them. And so as you read, listen for that. Encouragement is always in part looking back and looking ahead. Look at what God has done for you. Therefore, God will do this thing for you again. The second thing to listen to in 1st and 2nd Thessalonians is hope, which is maybe a natural consequence of encouragement. 1st and 2nd Thessalonians are often described as apocalyptic, which is just kind of a word that's big and hard for us to wrap our brains around, and kind of often a word that I just sort of run from. But it really just means this now and not yet time, where they lived in the hope of Jesus returning. Jesus was there, Jesus has ascended, Jesus will return again, and now we're in this in-between time. But what that means is you live in hope. Again, it's that note of encouragement for the suffering that's happening. Like, life might be hard now, but we know that it will not always be this way. There will be further redemption to come. There is hope. You are maybe suffering now, but it will not always be this way. There is hope that suffering and persecution and whatever is happening now in our daily life is not the final word. There is a final word yet to come. And so there is hope in this. Hope in what is to come, which somehow makes a difference for today. So as you are reading 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, listen for encouragement and also listen for the hope that comes from that. A third thing to listen to in these books is identity. Paul reminds the congregation who they are. You are people of faith. You are people who have received this great word from God. You are children of the light. At the end of 1st Thessalonians, this comes out in chapter 5 especially, where Paul says these words, you are not of the darkness, you are of the day. You are children of light and children of the day. So then, if you are this, it's not a potential. You don't have potential to be this. You just are this. So then, because you are this, here is how you live. You live in hope. You live caring for one another. You live encouraging each other. You live in faith. And so Paul puts their identity in front of them. Here is who you are. So that's another thing to listen to and important to remember as you are reading through these books, these letters. These 2 letters to the Thessalonians will be quick reads for you, which may mean that you have time to both go back and look at Acts and also maybe read through them a couple of times, because sometimes I think the letters of Paul require a few readings to grasp what he's saying. They're worth dwelling in for a bit for rereading to really hear them, but listening through for those things, encouragement, hope, and identity, and in listening for those things, I hope not only will you discover them for the congregation in Thessalonica, but also for you, because that's what Scripture is always for. It's for you and for your faith. So, blessed and happy reading, Gloria Deus.